So I can go live whenever you want. You just say so.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Talbot County Board of Education September work session. We're at TCEC. As you can see, we have a quorum present, and we do have Mrs. Dodson and Mrs. Henry will be zooming in with us this evening. If everybody could go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, that would be great. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, and then do I have a motion? Do we have our work session minutes?
Oh, so this, for Wednesday, we're doing it?
But they are attached. They're attached to the agenda that I sent to everybody.
Gotcha.
And I got back in and couldn't get back in again. I'm having a lot of problems in the community.
So do we want to approve these on Wednesday instead of tonight, so everybody can see them? Okay, we're gonna hold on that. So we'll move on to our work session topics of discussion. We have 3 this evening. The first is a data review with Dr. Helga Einhorn, Dr. Zuelika Horsey, and Mrs. Darlene Spurrier, and I know we're all really excited to hear what you have to say this evening, so take it away.
And so before she starts really quick, I want to make sure that on your graphic organizer at the top, I always like to review, how we got here, where we started. And so at the very top, back April 25th, 2023, we set our priorities that spring. We had the retreat. Molly was here with us and led us through, what the things that mattered most to us. We came up with these 3, and so the work started that fall. So school year 23-24 was us working within those priorities, putting different action items and strategies in place. And so that brings us to today, September 16, 2024, of this 24-25 school year to talk about the data from 23-24. So I just wanted to put it into context as to where we are.
While you're loading that, Mrs. Brundige, Mrs. Dodson is having some trouble staying connected. I don't know if you guys could look into what's going on.
Okay. So I guess the question is there we can't view and Zoom at the same time, correct? Mike? Okay. Maybe that's what he's doing. Can we view the slides and can we view slides and Zoom at the same time? Okay. Okay. it'll cover up the whole thing. Okay, so right now she can't see. Okay. Okay. You shared this with her. Okay. Okay. Okay, great. Okay. Okay, thanks. Okay, great. Okay. All right. Yes. Yep. Thanks.
Ms. Dodson and Ms. Henry, we can't see you if you do want to speak, so just jump in if you have any questions, please.
On our strategic goal around academic equity and achievement. In that goal, we really focus on ensuring that all students have equitable access to high-quality curriculum and instruction so that they're able to achieve at the highest levels in meeting grade level standards. As you know from last year, we had several initiatives in place. We were very fortunate to be recipients of the LEADS grant, and we focused on the science of reading strategy, which the last 2 years has allowed us to accomplish a great number of things, most of which you see on this slide. We were able to implement a universal screener. We have MAP testing. Last year, we did it for grades K through 5. This year, we're expanding to grades K through 8. Both of those measures allow us to monitor student progress in meeting grade level literacy and mathematics outcomes. We were able to provide professional learning to all of our staff, as I've shared with you previously, in the science of reading. We implemented new Tier 2 interventions, and again, those are interventions that the classroom teacher provides to students in small group instruction within the classroom. So they're not being pulled out and missing instruction, but rather they're able to stay in the classroom, so they're having access to all of the curriculum. We were also able to facilitate a more integrated approach to ensure that our ELA focus incorporated attention to special education, as well as our multilingual learners. One of the ways we were able to do that is when we looked at different curriculum materials to be able to purchase through the LEADS grant. We focused on accessibility for students with disabilities, as well as our multilingual learners. So we were able to select a curriculum that not only was aligned to the standards, but also had pathways and resources to meet students who had specialized needs. This fall, just a few weeks ago, we started implementing the SAFAS 3 chairs for pre-K. In all of our pre-K classrooms, our teachers had the opportunity to have professional learning over the summer. But we know that whenever you implement a new curriculum, there is a learning curve. And so our K-5 teachers have also had professional learning in the Benchmark Advance. But we are very fortunate to have literacy coaches, thanks to the board's focus on providing that resource to teachers. So they're able to be in classrooms on a daily basis, supporting our teachers in implementing those materials. to see the same layout of the information in our data as well. So they're not trying to interpret different data displays. The other thing that I would like to point out is also we like to look at cohort data. So one of the ways to look at that is to look at the prior year. So for example, if we take a look at our students in 6th grade in the orange bar, in 2023, 40.1% of those students were proficient. Those same students testing on ELA 7 are at 43.8. So that cohort of students made growth on those grade level standards, even though to look at the chart, it looks like it is a dip in our overall proficiency, but for that cohort of students, it's growth. We also look at our data, not just overall, but by our different student groups. And on this chart, and I apologize, it's not bigger on the screen, last year's 2023 data is in the light peach color, and the 24 data is in the dark blue. You will see that for all of our student groups, there was growth, with the smallest amount of growth being for our Black African-American students, where there was a 0.2. But our subgroups as well are making growth in each one of those groups. One of the things that the board is always interested in is how does Talbot County Public Schools compare to other districts in the state? And I wish that I could give you better news and say we have flip-flopped the map, but if you compare this year's results to last year across the state, you will see very little change. There is not a single district in the state who is leapfrogging in improvements on this map. Results across the state are pretty stagnant in ELA in the state. So the greatest level of proficiency is in Worcester County. I believe I share that with you every year. And they are at 69%. So it ranges from 27.7 to the 69.4, with Talbot County Public Schools at 47.3.
Dr. Einhorn, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Sorry, but with Worcester being at the top of the heap, so to speak, how does that correlate to their people spend? I think it's important that we put that out there for the public.
As Ms. Stops, and I don't have those statistics directly in front of me, but historically, Worcester has been one of the highest funded school districts in the state per pupil, in comparison to Talbot County Public Schools, who for many years were at the bottom, but thanks to our county council and work of this board and Dr. Pekai, we are moving up, but we are still at the lower level, and particularly in comparison with Worcester.
Thank you.
Is it fair to say, and I think it is based on my experience and time on the board, that as we increase funding, we are increasing our standing as compared to our peers?
So again, I don't have those numbers directly in front of me. I could certainly ask Ms. Jones to help me with some financials around that. I do know that we have had an infusion of funding through our leads grant, but also our county council support of things like our coaches. But I can definitely ask her if we could do some work around that.
As we've increased funding year to year, our standings have gone. Okay. We've leveled up a little bit. So we're making incremental progress.
Our data is showing we're making incremental progress. Unfortunately, we're across the state not making significant jumps, which we would hope to see. But I will also say if we, again, look at those third grade, that bump we see in third grade, I'm very encouraged by that. In trying to tie it to what we're doing, to data that follows it. These are the students to watch. So I hope that I will continue to come back to you year after year to say how that cohort is growing.
Well, when you look at the next slide too, the growth by subgroup, when you see growth in every subgroup, and again, I'm not a mathematician, so I'm not really sure how growth in every subgroup does not lead to growth in every grade, but I'm sure somebody understands that far better than I do. But anyway, I see this and I say we are reaching every student in some sense, in some capacity. Maybe not as well as we could, but we're getting there. We're making growth, and that's what I want to see is as we increase our funding and increase our efforts, I want to see them having some sort of response in the right direction.
And again, when we look at this data in comparison to our local data, and as I know 100%, I can assure this board that more than 47% of our students are mastering grade level standards. It's just that they are not showing it across the state on this particular assessment. So that's something that I hold on because I know our teachers are working extremely hard. They are shifting their instruction and they are meeting needs of individual students. So it's disheartening for me to look at this data, knowing the work that's happening in the classrooms and the results that we are seeing on multiple other data measures.
We've talked about this before, but it becomes less important to me, the actual number of proficiency with, like, when you say 47%, then you can really get into the weeds about what is the test and what are the standards and how are we testing and what are the, what are the benchmarks within there, and it can get really fraught with a variety of issues, and that makes a lot of sense if you get into that discussion. So I look less at the actual number and more where are we relative compared to our peers, because I think if you take a group of students and compare it to a group of students, you're pretty, it's almost apples to apples. It's not going to be perfect, but I do want to see us achieving higher levels of proficiency as compared to people around us. I don't want to be on the bottom. I'd rather be on the top. I know that we can get there, and I think we're moving in that direction. But to me, that is more important where we are in the standings as opposed to what the actual number is. And I think that, from my understanding, the state is also looking at that as well. And so that they will be addressing that and looking at how we're testing and what we're testing and what our standards are. So that's less the target for me than making sure that we're moving.
And we are very fortunate in Talbot County that our superintendent also is at the table for those conversations. So, similar format in sharing information with you about mathematics. I know that was the focus of the board last year that you set, and certainly an area that we need to work on. Again, shared some of these strategies with you previously, but do want to again thank you and the county council for the investment you're making in math coaches. The research continues to show that coaching for teachers to improve their practice is one of the most high leverage strategies for improving student outcomes. So we've been able to increase from 3 to 6 elementary coaches in the last 2 years. And this year we were able to add 1 middle school coach to begin that work at the middle school. We're also implementing math testing. Again, last year we just did it for grades K through 5. We're including the middle school as well, so we have additional data points to look at student progress. We are currently implementing new curriculum in mathematics K through 6 and 7 and 8, again selected by our teachers based on a comprehensive rubric that looked at alignment to standards, ability to accelerate student learning, but also to focus on our student groups where we continue to have persistent gaps. And as Ms. Bridges asked me previously, there are also parent components built into that so families can support their students in mathematics. We are implementing this year through the work of Ms. Daisy Bradwell, who does mathematics K through 8 this year, and Dr. Carol Ann Burkhart at high school. We're doing targeted best practices that are consistent across the county that we expect to see in every classroom so that our coaches are supporting teachers in that, our administrators are looking for those practices when they do walkthroughs in the classroom to ensure that we're all moving towards high leverage strategies that make an impact on student learning. We've also had many of our teachers this summer engaging in state and local professional learning to build their capacity to implement strategies, to use manipulatives, but also to differentiate instruction for students. Again, I can assure you that our students are learning mathematics. However, our state data, that needle, again, is not moving as quickly in mathematics. Overall, as a district, looking at grades 3 through 8, and then the high school assessments that students take in mathematics, overall, we have increased from 17% last year to 18.3% this year. I again point out our third grade scores, which had a more significant improvement than our other grade levels. I do want to apologize for Math 8 and geometry there. Those should show less than 5% rather than just being blank. And we know that the state suppresses the data if it's fewer than 5%. So we continue that practice here in our data reporting as well. We also look at our math proficiency by student group. And again, we see slight increases for each one of our student groups. We have less of an increase for our Hispanic and Latino students, and we still continue to have fewer than 5% of our Black students and our multilingual learners proficient in mathematics. Again, I want to assure this board that greater than 18% of our students are proficient in grade level mathematics. We know that because we know what the outcomes are for our students. Students would not be accepted to our colleges at the rate that they are if they were not able to show their proficiency in mathematics. However, on this particular assessment, our students, as well as students across the state, are struggling to show their proficiency. In the state of Maryland, anywhere from 9.8 to 41% of students are proficient in mathematics as measured by the Maryland Comprehensive Assessment that they take in grades 3 through 8 and in high school. For Talbot County, you can see we have not moved our rankings much, even though we've had a slight improvement. And if you look at the highest achieving school systems, again, Worcester and Howard County are there. And again, virtually little movement across the state in terms of those rankings. So we continue to do the work to help our students achieve the standards. However, this assessment is not demonstrating that. As opposed to our local measures and our standardized assessments like math, we see our students making the expected growth, which is not commensurate with what we see here. So I'm really excited to share with you that I know we're doing good work in this county, although we still have improvements to make. But we are going to have the opportunity to host expert review teams during this school year. So as you may recall, expert review teams are required by the blueprint. They are comprised of 6 individuals who will come to our school system. They have had to apply and be vetted by the Maryland State Department of Education. So they are practitioners in the field of mathematics. Some of them are affiliated with universities. They have a level of math expertise and pedagogy to bring to their work in our district, as well as districts across the state. Their purpose is to come to schools and to see what is working in terms of strategies to improve student outcomes, but also to identify where they might be able to offer us some supports and suggestions on how we might improve our efforts. They are currently only visiting elementary schools, and this year they're going to be visiting 3 of our schools. Chapel District Elementary, they are coming to take a look at what we are doing in terms of literacy instruction. They're coming to St. Michael's Elementary School to focus specifically on our practices for our multilingual learners. And they're coming to White Marsh Elementary School because they had significant growth in their math achievement across all grades in this last impact assessment. So they want to know what White Marsh is doing well. They're going to be here for 2 days, this 6-member team. They're going to be visiting classrooms and doing direct observation of what's happening in the classrooms in order to see our work in practice. They're also going to be interviewing staff, students, and parents and guardians. They are very specific about who is going to be among those stakeholder groups. They don't want us to send just our best or our parents who think are going to say we're doing great. They want to hear from multiple stakeholders. So they want to hear from a new teacher who has less than 3 years of experience. They want to hear from a seasoned teacher who may have been with us for more than 15 years. They want to hear from parents specifically who have students who are multilingual or special education. So that they're hearing from those groups who, in our district, still have those persistent gaps. They're going to be looking at our curriculum materials and our data, again, with the sole purpose of providing us with feedback on what we're doing well and how we can improve. All of their work is transparent. It's part of Pillar 5, governance and accountability. Their report will be posted on our website for our entire community to see. So we're really excited to host them in the district. Their first visit will be at White Marsh in October. And I just again want to thank this board for their tireless efforts to improve outcomes for our students. Our county council for supporting our budget, which allows us to do that, but also Dr. Pincapati, who has pushed us to look at data, not just MCAP once a year, but to do those temperature checks throughout the year. So we are ensuring that no child is missed and that every student is getting equitable access to high quality instruction to best meet their needs. That's all I have for you this evening.
I have a question about this, the group coming in. It sounds expensive. Who pays for that? Is that part of Blueprint? Is the state covering the charges on that? Is it grant funded?
It is all handled by the AIB and MSDE, so I can't speak, but it's not coming out of our budget.
Okay, that's fantastic. And second, the schools mentioned are our smaller elementary schools. And what we have seen firsthand, it's a different approach, reaching a smaller number of students and then expanding what you've learned there to a school like Easton Elementary, which is the biggest elementary school. Can you speak to how we plan to address that and how do you take what you've learned at a very small, very specific population and duplicate it or replicate it at a school like Easton Elementary, where I know that they are working very hard and doing great work, but probably much harder to get the same level of results or approach it in the same way?
So this evening I did not share individual school data with you, but Easton Elementary School did show some good gains, particularly in mathematics. One of the things that we do, even though it's a larger school, we have committed the same types of resources, but just on a larger scale. So while our smaller elementaries might have one math coach, we see multiple math coaches to be able to service the number of classrooms that we have at Easton Elementary. We provide the same curriculum resources, but we know that we also get some additional supports through their Title I funding. So we are, while there are things that can be done differently in the smaller school, our core focus and efforts are the same. I'm not sure I answered that particularly well this evening, but.
No, I can see it. And like I said, we've been in the schools and I actually see them doing the work. I see them doing the same things. I've gone through walkthroughs and seen the same thing being taught in each classroom across all of our elementary schools, which is amazing, to have that level of, synchronicity going. I just can imagine it's difficult to take our practice, that works really well for a small group, and how do you expand that to a large group? Does that work?
And again, how we schedule and how we do things may look slightly differently, but I think we can take the best instructional practices and replicate them in different spaces. And that's part of what this expert review team is going to try to call out for us. What are those things that are working particularly well in one building, and how do we do that in our others? Small or large, right? Because then you also have Tillman, which is even much smaller. And every one of our schools could have been visited by an expert review team this year for all different reasons, but the state only has a certain number across the state, and these happen to be the 3 who were selected. So our other schools will have an expert review team within the next year or 2.
A couple of questions.
And I'm sorry, I'm gonna jump in because I know she has a commitment, so, but I could try to answer those.
Yeah, I think you
She
will
has
be able
some,
to
yeah,
answer
so
them.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Einhorn.
Sorry.
Yep.
So before the expert review team comes in, has there been any feedback from the current teachers in regards to the curriculum changes, what they're seeing? What has that feedback been?
So I know I'm always out there, so I've been doing my walkthroughs, just get that anecdotal information from the teachers. I've heard positive. One thing, because we're doing ELA and math, I'm cognizant of not throwing everything at once and how can we make it bite-sized and manageable for them. From what I've heard, it has been positive. They're hearing positive results, but we also have platforms and a mechanism for them to share if it's not.
Okay.
From the administrators, from the coaches, from the teaching and learning team that go out and support those curriculum things.
Okay. You asked my second question. And then thirdly, do I have a copy of this slide deck? Because unfortunately, I can't see any of the data that was presented.
So yeah, we're gonna make sure you get all of these slides
Okay.
so that you can see that, yeah.
There is a question in the chat from Mrs. Dodson that says, am I mistaken that special ed was going to become a 4th priority?
Well, we said from our last conversation, we're gonna talk about it today and stamp to say whether we want that to be our 4th. But we wanted to present on the 3 that we had nailed down in the spring first, and then moving forward, if the team feels that that's the need, then we'll add special education. And I just want to make a few points that were shared. Number one, celebrating the moves, the increases in our proficiency, but also knowing that, just like Dr. Einhorn said, that's one snapshot. The state assessment that we give one time, the results are come out after the school year is over, which is why we do internal benchmarking, so we can see how students are doing in the interim before the summative is given. Second, you heard the LEADS grant funding, some of these things that we do, knowing that a grant has the termination. And so when we get to our budget season, it's just us being able to prioritize what do we want to make sure we are continuing to fund as we see these results. So something just to think about. And then third, the task force that I'm on that's talking about the MCAP, the state assessment, in that coming to Maryland and me hearing the history of a different test every 3 or 4 years, it changes, it keeps changing, the test keeps changing. And so there are a lot of concerns that have been raised because what districts are seeing is a very slow increase in proficiency, but internally we're seeing more. So how is that represented? And that's what this task force has been meeting about all year. Our recommendation is going to go to the state superintendent in December. We just concluded our 5th meeting last week where we're talking about all things that come under assessment and accountability. How long students are testing, the frequency of the test, the financial impact of the test. So we have a group that's leading us through a lot of great questions about the state assessment and how we want to show how kids are doing, and that's the accountability system. So it's really good information that we are coming to the table to decide what's going to be the next iteration of how we show students what we're teaching them, what they're able to do, and how we can show that to everyone. So I just kind of wanted to capitalize on that. And then I guess finally, I always keep the equation on my board, and you saw the acronym HQIM, which stands for High Quality Instructional Materials. So it's a formula, high quality instructional materials plus high quality instructional practices, like how we teach those materials. And then third, high quality professional learning. How do we continue to professionally develop those that are doing the practices for the curriculum? So it's like the three-legged stool. We need all three, and then as long as students are engaged, research says, results will come at that slow and steady pace. So we're going to keep chipping away and looking at the data, listening to those that are implementing this to make sure that we're tending to giving the professional development that is needed for the students. So.
Can I point something out too? I need to talk to Dr. Einhorn about this. I did look this up when I saw our data come out for the year. We were funded the last year it was reported on at the 7th lowest level in the state, our total per pupil spending. And we hit, our math scores are the 7th lowest in the state. They're directly correlated. And I don't think that is a perfect example all the time. I don't think it always works out like that. But in this case, and if you look at Maryland, it kind of, for the most part, does. There are some outliers. But I think it's important to keep that in mind as we talk about our budget cycle. We talk about what we're asking of our county council, what we're asking of our taxpayers, because we know the state does not give us as much as other people get. But I also think that when you see movement like we did in 3rd grade, I think that we are making really intentional, really important, really good funding decisions that have a big impact on learning and maybe not a big impact on our taxpayers. So thank you, County Council, for being supportive of these, a few math coaches, I think, make a huge difference. A few reading coaches make a huge difference. And so that's a few positions, that's a small number that makes a big impact. And I think Talbot County has always been really good at that. And I think we are becoming even more laser focused on very intentional spends for big moves. And I do believe, based on that number, that 3rd grade number, I think we're going to see some more big shifts coming up along the way. So, I mean, watch this space.
Okay. So if no further questions, we'll move to priority number 2 with, sorry.
The internal benchmarking, what is that showing?
So we gave you a report, so that's our map, measures of academic progress. So in the state, districts are either using what we're using, MAP, or they're using something else called iReady. Both of them are tests that are adaptive, meaning when a student takes it and starts getting a lot of questions right, it ramps it up. So we can see specifically what level students are on. The correlation between, and that's why half of the state's using MAP, half of the state's using iReady, because those assessments are indicators of how pretty much the state tests. It's a strong correlation of what we're seeing in MAP. We'll pretty much see the increases, but we could give you reports on what that's showing. Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay.
Good evening, board members. Dr. President Jackson. I'm here to present what we have been doing and continue to do to help foster an engaging environment for students and staff. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is the community schools, and there are some glows and grows for that. So we've hired an international family liaison, community partners, the relationship that's been built there. To just give you some examples, School of Trinity in Oxford for summer, they've provided summer school backpacks and food. There's a future bike rodeo with Talbot Thrive to give away bike helmets and help students learn how to ride a bike. Easton Rotary supplied every 3rd grader with a book from the Scholastic Book Fair, and also supplied coloring books and crayons for the guidance suite in order to assist or support mental health and counseling. Family engagement events, so they included new family orientation, art reach for our ELL families with the Academy of Arts, and school resources such as Power School. Vision support for students, we've been able to connect more students to community partners for classes and eye exams, and then data analysis in the areas of support for students and families. we've been gathering data on support activities that for students and families. Saying the free Zoom meeting is ended.
That's okay. We'll keep you started.
Some of the grows, increased wellness coverage for before and after school activities, hire a bilingual social worker, continue to grow access to home with behavior support, increase access to healthy foods for families, work with the care packs and the Maryland Food Bank to do that, increase enrichment opportunities for students, attract students with chronic absenteeism, and develop strategies to increase attendance. Initiatives for the 23-24 school year. We had Alex Boyer, who... Did you hear that? Yeah. Is it just me? Yes. So last year, during the 23-24 school year, we had all students in grades 5 through 12 in business assemblies with Alex Boyer, who came to talk about self-esteem, suicide prevention assembly. He was, I don't know if you had the opportunity to see, he was very entertaining, very engaging with the students. I think everybody enjoyed it. This year we have him coming back, and we will have grades 3 through 12 attend, and lessons learned from last year, we're going to have them in the 2 auditoriums at the high school. So that, I think, helps with just the presentation of it all. And we've also added this year 2 parent nights, and I think you have the schedule. If you need that, please let me know. So we're trying to engage parents in the community. Yellow ribbon training. All school counselors and school social workers are trained in yellow ribbon suicide prevention and intervention, and students in grades 3 through 12 receive annual training, which starts on September 30 every year. And we actually this year have 2 or 3, depending on how you look at it, billboards on Route 50 that we were able to purchase with grant money. One billboard is 2-sided, so you can see it heading west or east on Route 50 by Robin's Nest, and then the other one is right at 404 before you cross into Talbot County, and you'll see that it has credits to the MD Aware Grant, Talbot County Public Schools, and Yellow Ribbon. Some more initiatives. We have restorative practices are now, we have staff trained in every school for a total of 20 in restorative practices, and they are trained as trainers. So again, when we look at these kinds of things, we're looking for sustainability, how do we keep this moving forward even after we no longer have the MD. So we have 20 staff who are trained as trainers. And they are, it's all staff in all schools are trained in the fundamentals of restorative practices. And just to give you an idea of what restorative practices is, it's a way to address conflict and build community by focusing on relationships and repairing harm. It's based on the idea that people are fundamentally good and interconnected, and that relationships are important. So when you're talking about the discipline process, when you're talking about more informal things with students, it allows us to do more conscious discipline. Teams trained at all elementary and middle schools for a total of 32 staff across the state, and we were able to send teams from every school this summer to a week-long training. Conscious discipline is an adult-first technique that addresses adult self-regulation and skill sets first, to empower adults to model, teach, and live skills and ideals they want children to acquire. So it's meant to demonstrate for children healthy ways to manage their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Some more initiatives continued. So we have parent and staff support that we've provided. Last year we did 9 parent guardian webinars with 3 different guests who came in to speak, and those were recorded and made available to families who couldn't participate in real time. And we did staff webinars or presentations for staff. We had 13 of those. We also established Holly Rose Purple Clubs at the secondary schools, so Easton Middle School, St. Michael's High, and Easton High. And Holly Rose Purple, I think everybody's familiar with that, it's a substance abuse prevention and resistance skill building for students. Some more initiatives that we have. We've been working with Dr. Bostic, who is a pediatric psychiatrist out of Georgetown University, and he's been doing case consultation with us now. We're going into our 3rd year, I believe, with him. Last year, he heard 12 new cases, 6 updates, and did 2 staff trainings with our school social workers. So that allows us to have outside eyes, and they're all, no names of students obviously are mentioned, but it allows us to do both inside consultation among our school social workers and then get outside expertise to help us through some of the more difficult cases that we have. We did a local climate survey last year for the first time. We did it once in the fall and once in the late winter. And we plan to do that again this year, knowing that the state survey is given in the spring. The idea being that we can get sort of a baseline in the fall, see where the needs are, and adjust some things for students before we do a post-survey with them internally, and then we do the state survey. And I think those results were shared with you earlier. So just some data. School mental health providers, we had in 22-23 we had 9, and I just want to give you a little bit of trend data so you can see where we're moving. In 22-23 we had 9 mental health practitioners representing 6 different agencies. Last year we had 12 mental health practitioners, so these are outside community agencies providing practitioners. We had 12 in the schools representing 10 mental health agencies. And this coming year for 24-25, we have 17 practitioners from the community in our schools, and that represents 11 mental health agencies. So we really, kudos to Dr. Schmidt. He's been really able to develop those relationships and solicit a lot of providers to come into our school, because we know that there's a waiting list for some of those agencies, and our goal is to not have that. Substance abuse referrals, we had 92 in 22-23, and we dropped to 88 in 23-24. And then mental health referrals, we were at 312 in 22-23, and we dropped to 277 in 23-24. Theoretically, we have a lot of students in service already, but we do have a lot more eyes on students and able to flag things early and get them the resources that they need. And then you'll see the pie chart is a little bit difficult to read, but just the reasons for mental health and substance abuse referrals. The biggest one is family issues and substance abuse, followed by anxiety, grief, loss, depression, suicidal thoughts.
About the mental health referrals, is that number indicative of students who were flagged or students whose families agreed to have them proceed with mental health counseling?
Those are the referrals. So that's not necessarily an indicator of how many follow through and fully engaged in services. And what we find is the ones maybe who didn't follow through and engage will get another referral for them, either within that year or so that could be unrelated referrals as well.
I know we've had an issue with that in the past, that there was a segment of people who refuse treatment or help for whatever reason. Are you seeing any movement on that? Is that number going down, or is that a pretty stagnant set of population that will just not accept assistance?
I have seen, and I think Dr. Schmidt would agree with this because we've talked about this a couple of times, I think the stigma is lessening with it. And I think the other big thing that has made it feel more accessible is our mental health school social workers. Because they're meeting with students. But if we have a family who's resistant to a mental health provider, we have our school social worker work with them. And when they realize that that's not so scary or it doesn't have that stigma that they thought it did, then they might be more open to it. So I think it is getting better.
That's good.
The risk two, so just some more data. The risk two, we had 164 assessments, and this is the suicide prevention assessment that we do, or intervention assessment that we do. We had 164 in 22-23, and last year we were at 109. And then threat assessments, we had 99 in 22-23, and last year we had 127. And then bullying incidences, we had 22-23 we had 72, and 23-24 we had 73.
From our knowledge, a bullying incident, is that when the official paperwork is filled out and filed, or is that just anything picked up along the way?
That comes from the number of reports that we get.
The actual paper that goes over.
Yes. The last thing that I wanted to share with you was the student and staff attendance data. So in 22-23, we were at 91.87. Last year, we were at 91.62, so not really a significant change. And then the staff attendance rate for 23-24 was 92%. A little bit higher if you factored in some of the things that were going on with specific staff. So,
do you have any data, I don't know if you have it, for pre-COVID attendance rates? I feel like COVID messed that all up, so we can't really, but like anything from 2019 and before then, where were we at attendance-wise, do you know?
I don't have it right at my fingertips, but I can get that for you.
Okay.
I do think we're slowly seeing this come out of COVID, because you have to remember the other thing that's confusing is that during COVID, when students were on home, like basically on home instruction and remote, as long as they did the bare minimum of engaging, they were counted present. So you're going to see the attendance rate during COVID really be extremely high. And then it looks like it nosedived when we came back. And the reality is the standards just went back up, right? But then we also were followed by a hybrid schedule. COVID is still very much present with mandated quarantine, so it's free from school. And then even into the next year, we had mandated quarantine for a better part of the year. So those all impacted, and now we're slowly starting to see it increase. But yes, I can get you those rates prior to COVID.
I feel like that's kind of what I'm seeing both in Dr. Einhorn's presentation and yours, is that maybe we are climbing out of it. Like, or we're not there yet, but like I think we're kind of almost at the top of that mountain, getting back to that pre-COVID data level. And I'd like to just put the COVID years aside and not consider that when we talk about data, because I think it's not helpful.
And I think what you're saying is confirmed. I've had a couple of people say this is kind of the first year that we feel like we're getting back to normal.
Yeah.
So.
A couple more questions. Who has the ability to make the referral for mental health services? And then is the process streamlined or easy enough, if you will, for lack of better terms, where we're capturing all of the students that need to be captured and whoever doesn't feel like it's too much to issue the referral, if that makes sense?
Sure. So our school counselors and school social workers complete the referrals after talking with the parent. And they all go, it is streamlined, it all goes through Dr. Schmidt, who's our mental health coordinator, and then he turns them on to a community agency that he knows has openings, where we have a good fit. So for instance, if we have a student who's struggling with both mental health and substance abuse, we just partnered with a new agency called New Day, New Start, and they do a fabulous job with that dual issue. And he of course could have better insight into why he sends or where he sends, but that's what he does. That's how we streamline it.
Okay. And I guess that brings another question. Is it widely known or advertised in a manner where parents are able to, reach out to the counselor or someone to be able to possibly put in a referral for their own child if they need the help?
I think our staff, both our teachers and our school counselors and our administrators are all very much aware of that service. And so we communicate that with parents, and when we see a child struggling, that is one of the first things. If we, during the course of registration, our counselors take the lead on registration because they can talk to those parents about things. And if there's a concern, we can make referrals right at the entry point to TCPS. But if we see a child struggling, we will reach out to parents.
I have two personal things I want to share with you. One, thank you so much for getting that young man into school. The gentleman came and thanked me for how wonderful you are. So I just want to pass that along and say thank you so much. And the other thing, the restorative practices, I have got to say, I wasn't a believer, but I am now. And I will share this, it's a personal story, but I got on the board because my grandson was having the hell beat out of him in school. And the young man that was doing it was, Anyway, I overheard some teenagers talking about what Miss Mann had done in St. Michael's with this young man. And it made my heart just, he's doing a complete 180. Man, he's a neat dude now. It really does work. I just want to say thank you.
Well, that's good to hear. Thank you for sharing that. I just want to take the opportunity to thank the board and Dr. Tepkai and the county council to continue the advocacy for our students and getting these kinds of supports, because we know that if we don't provide these kinds of things, they can't perform and meet that success. So this is really an important part of their education. So thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm going to be presenting information from the realm of the HR department. So one of the things that's really important since onboarding to this new position is to really create and start to think about a talent management plan of how we recruit, retain, hire, and support the people that are already here. Some of you may have seen that hashtag that we used at the beginning of the year with the new teachers, and it's say yes to TCPS, and we want them to continue to say yes to TCPS. So a part of this work includes making sure we're developing a really robust plan of how we hire people and looking at ways that we do that, starting from the incept of when they hit the application button until we onboard them here at TCPS. So some of the things that we are offering here at TCPS is to continue to grow our own program and employee to teacher. We have direct billing with all of these universities here. We just newly added one to Stevenson University just last week. We're looking at the additional partnership with UMES as well as Washington College. And so any of our teachers as well as our instructional assistants that need to complete the degree or earn a master's degree has an opportunity to attend these universities. And so when I talk about direct billing, as long as they meet the requirements and complete the application and get some prior approvals, we'll be able to pay those colleges and universities directly, which is a huge assistance when you're talking about new teachers. Also, our new teacher mentor program, when we talk about hiring new teachers, and that's one of the things that has been really a success. And I contribute Dr. Einhorn and her team for that project. It's really important that new teachers have supports when they come. So when we look at the 23-24 school year, I looked at the data, and those numbers are the numbers of new hires that were hired for those particular schools. When we talk about this year, that number is slightly increased, but one of the things that I started to look at was some of the teachers that have transferred in between schools, and there were a lot of retirements that are grouped into there as well. We also take a look at specialty areas when we look at some of our CTE programs, our special ed. We also look at areas that are harder to fill when we look at those numbers. So when I talk about our onboarding for HR and the things that we're going to be doing differently, so looking at a calendar timeline, and even though we seem like we just started school for next year, we're already having discussions in December of how we look at to start to hire people for the upcoming school year. And one of those things will be our own on-site job fair here at CCPS to include all of the departments, our transportation, teachers, instructional assistants, bus drivers. We really want to start that process early, and December is an important month because you talk about early grads in December. And so just looking at our practices overall, how we onboard the people that are applying to TCPS. And so that includes looking at the places that we visit. And so we have a recruitment and retention facilitator, Mr. Devin Beck, and I had him to look at the places that we traveled before. So for example, one place was Pennsylvania. We've been going to Pittsburgh for a number of years, so that PERC, I believe it is. And it really hasn't yielded the results that we needed. So how do we expand our view to be able to capitalize on something new? So in addition to that, one of the things that we start to do out of our office, anytime someone gets hired, we send them a welcome note. So a part of building that bridge is making people feel welcome into our system. The other aspect that I looked at is our teachers that are 2 to 3 years that still need certification support, looking at how we can tailor some programs to be able to get teachers over the hump. And so we currently have about 19 teachers who are in that situation, as well as 10 of our new hires. The other thing that really sticks out for us when new teachers come here is finding a place to live. That has proven to be really a challenge. And I mentioned to a group most recently, the year before, I was interviewing and we hired a young lady. She came from Annapolis, really eager, first time job, first time away from her parents. She was down at one of our schools, but she never found housing all year. And so she ended up going back to Anne Arundel County. And she actually was commuting every day from Annapolis to here because she didn't find housing. And so when we talk about the diversity of our staff, these are our numbers, our breakdown. One of the things that I believe is really important is that we recruit and retain highly qualified individuals for all of our positions, which are very important. But we also look at how we can support people that we hire. When we talk about retention and kind of those incentives around that, we look at our national board certified teachers. We currently have 3. We currently have 36 that are in the process, and so they'll find out by December. We also are taking a look at, currently we have 421 certified staff, 41 admin certification, and that includes like our school leadership teams. And so we have a total of 462 total certified staff here at TCPS. Currently, we still do have some job vacancies, but I'm pleased to say we only have about 9 across our district. Our department has been working closely with our special ed department because, again, nationwide, it's not just Talbot County. There's a high need for special ed teachers, math teachers, and other areas that are kind of specialty. So we've been working really close with Ms. Mentges as she recruits teachers for that particular position. The other thing that I will add to that list, we also want to know when people leave us. And so one of the roles that I've taken on in HR, every time someone leaves, they do an exit interview. But now they'll do their exit interview with me, so I can kind of gauge to give us some feedback, because I think that's really important. What calls them to make a decision to go somewhere else. And so I'm really excited because all of this work and hiring and putting the right people on the bus lends itself to the work that is happening in teaching and learning and in student services and special ed. It all works in conjunction together. Excuse me, I'm talking all day.
I would like to bring this full circle and talk about the PD, the conscious discipline PD, that I feel like I have heard nothing but rave reviews about from, community members and parents and teachers, but mostly from teachers who feel really supported in their roles, and we're thankful for the opportunity to have such an impactful and important job learning experience. And I think that ties in so nicely with both of these priorities, because if we continue to give such high quality PD opportunities, not only does it pay back to our students, which is the main goal, but it makes our teachers feel supported and engaged and like they have additional opportunities that maybe they wouldn't get elsewhere. So I'm not sure if that was a co-planned thing, but if we could do more of that, I think it really just, kill two birds with one stone. Like this is awesome. And also, we've been getting the same presentation for years and years and years, and this is the first time we've heard anything new and exciting and different in a long time, and I am thrilled with what you just said to us, that we're looking at new partnerships, that we're expanding our very own, that, just things that we've been saying, maybe we should do this for a long time. It feels like it finally caught on and that those wheels are turning, and that's really exciting from my perspective.
Can I jump in? And I know that we talked about this maybe in the past, but I think as far as recruitment and retention, it might be helpful if we were to consider.
So this next portion won't be a slideshow, but you have handouts that Ms. Mentges and Ms. Smith will talk through as far as special ed here at TCPS, and just an overview of plans moving forward for this year that we want to share and have this time to go over. So really quick, I see Ms. Dotson had a question. Are the transfers, she's assuming they're transfers out or transfers across to other buildings?
Transfers to other buildings.
To other buildings.
So within the district.
Okay, still within the district, but to other schools. Thank you for that, Ms. Dotson. So I'll keep a note of chat.
Yeah, I'm not able for you to hear me. You can't hear me.
So good evening, President Jackson.
Oh, sorry.
Members of the board. I assume you have to keep this held.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my name is Kristen Mentges, and this is Julia Smith. This is one of the exciting new hires to the special ed department. Although she is not new to the special ed department, it was one of the added positions. So you guys approved a supervisor of special education position. So she transitioned at the beginning of the school year from being the Access, Equity, and Progress coordinator to supervisor of special education. So thank you very much, because it has been a much needed new position this year. So one thing I'm going to talk about, I'm going to start with saying that with all of the areas of focus, we always start with data. So you just got an overview of some of the data related to the state performance, and that is one thing that we do look at. We also look at a lot of other data. So we look at results from internal monitorings as well as state and federal monitoring results. We also look at classroom observations. We look at feedback from staff and parents, as well as community members. We also look at the blueprint. So the blueprint has a special education focus group, and they gave some, I guess, statewide focus areas that they wanted to include. So in addition to a myriad of other data points that we use to determine what areas of focus we want to use each year. These were the same focus areas we had last year. And one thing to point out is that we feel like the trends and the focus areas were important to look at over time. Teachers needed more than 1 year to implement these because these are very big areas and broad areas to work on in just 1 year. So the 3 areas we wanted to focus on are narrowing the gap of achievement between students with disabilities and their grade level peers, particularly in the area of ELA and math. The second, well, and specifically, and I know I talked about this when we met in the spring, particularly in the area of how to design specially designed instruction. So collaborating with their special education, their general education partners in the classroom to really determine what that specially designed instruction needed to look like, as well as what the specially designed instruction needs to look like outside the classroom when they pull students out. And then the second area of focus is providing most of the special education instruction inside the general education setting, because we know that the general ed teacher is the content specialist, and so really focused on providing the majority of that instruction inside the general ed setting is best for students. While we know that there are some students that still need some instruction provided outside the general ed setting. And then the third area of focus is making sure that all the special education policies and procedures are followed with fidelity, and that the documents that they complete related to the special education process are completed as they should be. So all the other items underneath those areas of focus are our priority areas. In special education, there are 3 major priority areas. There is early childhood.
And I'm going to pause real quick, Kristen, because I've been reading the chat, and I'm trying to figure out a way. We could hear Ms. Dotson at one point, now we can't. Do we know why that happened? Do I need to turn my volume up?
Okay. I think you'll hear her now.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know what the problem was before.
Could you hear us?
Now I can hear you, yes.
But when I was in Dr. Horsey was up there, I was trying to ask a question.
Okay. And I actually want to. Oh yeah. Sorry. Okay. I want to make sure that it's noted that Ms. Dotson added to consider a teacher sick bank. So I just wanted to have that added under that last priority that we talked about.
Because if you're looking, maybe not so much for a brand new teacher, but if you're looking at a teacher that's coming from another county, then having a sick bank might be meaningful for them to consider helping community or not.
Okay, so we capture that. Yep. So then the first part, I guess, I just want to make sure we're chunking this. The first speaking point were the 3 areas of focus for special education for us. Narrowing the gap, providing special education inside the general ed room, and then IEP teams following special ed policies and procedures. And so just a little bit of background. When students come in to the school system and the teacher may notice some challenges, there is a team, multi-tiered systems of support, MTSS, a team that comes together because no decisions are ever made in isolation. you always have a team around the table to make the decisions of how best to move forward. And so as part of that team, you have people represented that talk about what we're seeing, the data, all things that come together. And so from there, it's determined what interventions are used, what data we're going to track that are associated with those interventions. And then if it comes to a, identification or testing, then Ms. Mentges and her office staff then come in to assist with that. So I kind of just wanted to give you the background of the path for that. But I'm going to pause there because I know Ms. Dotson, you said you had a question.
Yes, first of all, thank you for trying to be more inclusive. I think that's important. However, special education students, as you well know, it's still not one size fits all. I'm just wondering if the staff in special education classrooms, in particular, I'd look for each classroom to see how it's going and how the staff is making out the current staffing levels.
So specifically, is that staffing in proportion with student need?
Correct. And the inclusive rooms.
Okay.
Do the teachers feel like they have adequate support in those rooms versus, like instructional assistants and that type of thing? To help support those students with higher needs.
So, and that's one thing, and I actually, we had a meeting about this as well, in finding out decisions for that. And I'll let Ms. Mentges kind of walk through how decisions are made as to how many staffing is adequate for a classroom of student with needs, just so people can have an understanding of how that's determined.
So there's actually going to be another paper that I'm going to pass around.
I'm jumping the gun.
But that's okay. But before I pass the paper around, there's a lot that goes into staffing, specifically related to classrooms for students with more intensive needs, more inclusive settings, where we have students who have either more physical disabilities or more intellectual disabilities, where there may be 1, 2, or more instructional assistants, as well as a special education teacher going into the classroom. We, look to see, are we talking about the beginning of the school year, where we need to see how they transition in and they start to develop the routines. Once they do develop the routines, or we hope that they've developed the routines and transitioned in, then we look to see, do we need to add an instructional assistant, because we should have expected at this point that they've developed and established the routines once they've been taught. Do they need additional supports like the development of a functional behavior assessment and a behavior intervention plan? So there's a lot of other factors that go into determining whether additional staff are needed, because one thing we also want to keep in mind is to make sure students don't become reliant and dependent on an adult. We want to make sure they develop independence and don't become so supportive or supported by one individual staff member, while also making sure that we're providing the necessary staff that students can be successful in the classroom. So,
can I ask a question? Who makes the determinations on the staffing needs? Is it the principal? Is it the assistant principals? Is it the teachers themselves?
It's a whole combination of people. So it's all those people that you just mentioned, having a collaborative conversation about what the needs of the students are, what's being successful, what's not being successful. It's usually a process, so it's not usually one meeting. It's usually, let's put this into place and then let's check back in and see if it's worked. And if it hasn't worked, let's have another meeting. So it's not usually a once and done decision. it's usually multiple meetings over time before we get to, okay, we need to put an additional staff member in place.
Something that I'm not hearing you specifically say, which I'm wondering how much of a part this carries in all of this, is obviously we're focused on student need and student achievement, but special ed is a very difficult part of education to work in. It's very physically taxing. It's very very hard on the special ed specific IAs and the teachers who are providing those services. How much does their need calculate into staffing needs, and how much can they raise the flag and say, I need more support in this classroom? How much does that factor into those individual decisions? And are we in a position to maybe give that a little bit more weight? We, as in the board and our budget, because that's really what our job here is. Are we in a position to do that, to facilitate that conversation?
I don't think I quite understood your question. Like the teachers, how much?
Yeah, professional development for the teachers and support.
Professional development and support. So if I'm a general ed teacher or I'm a special ed IA assigned to a classroom and I'm saying I'm in over my head, this is way too much. I really need some more support here. I could really use another person. I could really use some help. Whoever is saying that, how much does that factor into your decision from a staffing perspective? Because that's not necessarily directly correlated to student achievement. That's saying I'm going to burn out, and that's the last thing that we want. Again, ties back to our retention priority. Like it all comes together.
Sorry, it dropped. I've got back in.
So I would say that there's twofold. One, a lot of the times principals will make shifts within their building to offer additional support. So I think it's not necessarily that it's we're not offering support, because a lot of the times there is additional support provided, even though there might not be a whole staff member allocated to that room. So, because a lot of the times it's at this specific time within the schedule, there's some struggles. So, like lunchtimes tend to be when a lot of difficulties arise because staff are in and out of the room, and that's when additional staffing are needed. So sometimes there are shifts that are made to accommodate an extra person being in the classroom at that time. But when we're talking about a whole nother person being basically hired for that classroom or that building, that
someone's mic is live. Okay.
we look to see if, before we hire that person, is everything in place from the standpoint of supports, meaning behavioral supports, are all the routines in place that should be in place before we jump to hiring another staff member. Do you have
Well, I was just going to add, and so to your question about when teachers are feeling overwhelmed, because that is definitely something that happens. In addition to the instruction, and especially with working with littles, there's all of the paperwork that's involved, like we talked about with the compliance. So when it comes to teachers feeling overwhelmed, I think the first thing is that we do is, we go in, we observe, and we talk with them, because sometimes it might be they literally need another set of hands, but sometimes it could be that they need more supports with managing their time, or with saying, hey, it's okay, you rely on the gen ed teacher to do some of this, rely on the IAs to do some of this, because we have some teachers that are, bless them very much, they want to do all the things, and that leads to some burnout. So sometimes it's a conversation, and as Kristen mentioned, and kind of taking that time to sort out what is the next step that's going to help this classroom and this teacher or these teachers. And sometimes we have a department full of other specialists. We have our special education facilitator who focuses a lot on specially designed instruction. We have a behavior interventionist. We now have a special education mentor who's really supporting our first year teachers. I'm in the buildings. We have a lot. We have 2 educational diagnosticians. So we do try to provide the supports that correspond to what that particular teacher might be needing. Is that?
Yeah, that does
shed
answer.
some light.
And we did, as a board, commit to those extra positions, so we have had kind of eyes on this and looking.
Yeah.
And so I would say, as we enter, my gosh, the next budget cycle again already, I think, and I cannot speak for the whole board, so sorry you guys are behind me right now, but I think that we would be open to discussing about, you know, additional staffing changes, if we're going to make special ed our fourth priority, I would be interested to hear how we could beef up from an IA perspective, or maybe I know it's a really hard position to hire for, but are there ways in which we could increase our staffing to increase teacher satisfaction, lessen teacher burnout, making everybody feel more supported, which I think turns into student success.
And I got kicked off again at one point, but I didn't hear you talking about visiting the classrooms. Is it your intent to visit all of the inclusion classrooms? I know that we're still very early in the school year, so you may not have had a chance to do that yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot countywide, because when we talk about inclusion classrooms, really we're talking about the classrooms, right? I mean, special education it starts in the general education classroom, and so that's really, we're talking about the vast majority of our classrooms. But yes, as a department, we have, and again, thank you for all these extra positions, because what that enables us to do professionally is go out. I always see, we serve our teachers. You know, we serve our kids, but we really we serve our teachers. So that is absolutely the intention, that someone from our department is going out to all of the schools and supporting the needs that are there.
Certainly the intent is to try to get to as many classrooms as we possibly can throughout the year. I can tell you just a very cursory, this is certainly not, because we haven't collected all the data yet from the case management, but our current caseloads, because I try to gauge at the beginning of the school year kind of what the caseloads are across the county, just to make sure that we didn't project at the end of the year incorrectly, because we have had a lot of movement into the county as well as out of the county over the summer. Right now, the average caseloads at each school are between 6 and 13. So we are looking pretty good right now for caseloads for as many kids as have come in and left the district. We are getting the case management reports from the teachers so that we can ensure that my math, which is not my strong suit, is correct. But right now we're looking really good with caseloads.
We talk a lot about this every year about caseload, student versus hours.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna give you that in a minute.
Okay, thank you.
Which is what we collect on the case management reports, which is the hours along with the actual numbers of students.
And also I see in Ms. Dotson's chat specific visits for the newly inclusion classrooms in pre-K and K. And so for me, that will be, because one thing, I go out and I visit classrooms, but new this year is going specific to those new classrooms, newly established classrooms, or the classrooms of new staff. And so that's something on my list this year that I'll be doing.
So we seem to have some large class sizes in some of the pre-K rooms. And I just, that leads back to my staffing question from earlier, with IAs and such, with the pre-K classrooms being larger in size.
Okay, so I've captured that.
So getting back to the three major areas, the early childhood, access, equity, and progress, and transition. For early childhood, the conscious discipline has come up again, so really focusing on conscious discipline for our early childhood populations, and that goes all the way down to our infants and toddlers, staff and children. Frog Street is the curriculum we use for both our infants and toddlers and our P3 classrooms. So that is the training and the coaching for the use of that curriculum. And then in the areas of access, equity, and progress, I'll let Julia talk about the Best Buddies program.
And there's not too much to report at this moment, but Best Buddies is an international program, and it focuses mostly on friendship clubs, so it is an extracurricular activity. We first started at Easton High School last year, but it's been very difficult for us to get it off the ground because the logistics of transportation. A lot of our students with significant cognitive disabilities really rely on taking the bus home. So we have tried to get creative with the 2 teachers at Easton High School to do some activities during the day. But the point behind doing Best Buddies is really getting close to that community in a school building, that all kids belong in all parts of a school building. They belong in gen ed, they belong in the cafeteria, they belong in sports, they belong in, you know, extracurricular clubs. And so that's been one of the focuses, trying to really get a foothold of Best Buddies within our schools to kind of foster that sense of community and belonging for all kids. The Universal Design for Learning has also been grant funded, and that is aimed mostly at our general education teachers. UDL is not special education, it's just good classroom teaching. So our thought was that the more our general education teachers were able to provide multiple access points to the variability of learners that they've come across, whether it's special education or multilingual learners or, you know, what have you, that the better they were at that equitable access, our kids would benefit. So that's why that's been an area of focus. And then MCIE, the Maryland Coalition for Inclusive Education, that's starting up this year. It is a 3-year, we're partnering with MCIE. The first year is grant funded by them. The second year is grant funded by the AEP grant through MSDE. And that is a 3-year proposal to really take a deep look. We're focusing on Easton Elementary School because we want to start, you know, in one building and one staff, and that's where we do have a lot of our most diverse population, as well as a lot of our special ed kids that we know are being pulled out a lot more than, you know, they might not be benefiting from all that pulled out instruction. So they're going to come in. This first year is starting off with planning. In fact, tomorrow morning we have our first district implementation team meeting, as well as then we go out with the MCIE facilitators to do the classroom observations at Easton Elementary, and then it ends with the school-based implementation team meeting, and that's headed by Dr. DeVerick, and she has handpicked general education, special education, administrator, her team there to really support that this becomes a school-wide initiative.
A question just came through from Ms. Dotson. So agreeing with everything, however, if they have high need students and 22 kids in a class, they need to have enough IAs to make everyone successful. Okay. And so.
Point taken, understood. I think I know what you're referring to perhaps at Easton Elementary. So we have been in that classroom, and we are again meeting again with that one, our special ed teacher who's currently split between the 2 rooms. It has been an open dialogue with the teacher as well as with the admin there, because as Ms. mentioned, one of the things with inclusive practices is we want to find the sweet spot for staffing. Because what we also know is that if we overstaff a room, because we've seen it before, especially with kids with more significant needs, either staff because they're good and they want to be purposeful and help, they may overhelp, or they sometimes don't have an activity and so they may end up talking. I don't want that to sound like that's intentional. The thing is that some days things roll smoothly and you have enough staff. And then one day goes a little bit sideways because somebody woke up in a bad place, you know, or something happened. And then all of a sudden you feel short-staffed. And so that's why the response, you know, having some flexibility within a building to like add an IA a certain day or for a certain time of the day. I know that is something that at Easton Elementary they've been doing. But certainly we are very closely in communication with that team and looking at their numbers. The pre-K classes at Easton Elementary currently have a full-time teacher, 2 full-time IAs, and then a half-time special ed teacher. And in talking with the teams, that seems to be working. There's always some differences of opinion, but when we look at the team, you know, we take all that feedback into account.
And And as I said, this is a collaborative effort.
Work in progress.
And there's going to be continue to be conversations about that classroom, as well as several classrooms across the district that either students have moved into the county recently that are adding to something we didn't know would exist, and we're having to take another look of, do we need an extra support in that classroom? So these are all, we're early in the stages of the year, so we may need to add to certain classrooms.
And just to finish the MCIE, so their role is coming in to really help us identify strengths, but also the school team to kind of identify where they would like to go with more inclusive practices, and then how do we support that, because it does imply that we have to give a lot more supports and training to the general education classroom. And so that's the work. The first year is going to be all about the discussions and the planning. We will still continue always to offer that continuum of services, but we do really recognize that our kids, especially in elementary, and one of our initiatives is that we would like to see them spend more time in general education classrooms where they're getting that, more rigorous instruction. They're getting that content teacher with the support and the imprint of the special education teacher for that specially designed instruction.
Yeah, so this is a slow progression. Right. This is no intent is to make this quick. The last area is transition, and this is looking at our secondary students who will be graduating and moving to the post-secondary world. So the first is providing professional development to our secondary special ed teachers on what supports the Division of Rehabilitation Services can provide. The next are two conferences or career supports for students and the business community. So the Neurodiversity Conference is for our business partners and community partners for how they can engage with our students in the community. And the Career Expo is more for our students, for the careers that they can be involved with in the community, and that usually is held at the Chesapeake College. And then the transition assessment is what transition assessments are available and can our students be involved with, so that they have they have a better idea of what interest areas they have, what vocational experiences they may want to be involved with, and vocational goals they might want to engage with when they exit school. The last area is not necessarily special education. However, it stems from special education. So these are areas that we are currently disproportionate in the area of special education, that we then have to expend some special education funding because of in the area of general education. So it's funds taken from our special education grant funds that we need to expend on general education students. So those last four bullets are what we've determined we are going to expend on general ed students. So a speech therapist to provide early intervention services to students through MTSS, which is our multi-tiered systems of support. So before students become special ed, we're going to provide them with speech therapy services in the hopes that we don't have to call them special ed. Paula Cluth is, we used some money to bring her, she was a national presenter, through this grant, and she came in August. And she presented on inclusive practices and strategies, and all of Easton Elementary School, guidance counselors, general ed teachers, special ed teachers, the administration, all came, as well as some staff from the outlying schools. She came and presented, and books were purchased, and we are following up with teachers on some of the information from those books. And the staff had a lot of good feedback on that presentation. And then training with coaching for guidance counselors and school-based mental health providers on functional behavior assessments and behavior intervention plans, as well as strategies, the implementation of strategies from a behavior interventionist. Those two things have not yet happened. They will likely happen towards the end of this year, and then the behavior interventionist will happen next school year. Do you have any questions?
This is hiring a fair number of very specialized positions, and I know we struggle over here. I know we've struggled to hire like a speech therapist for a long time, ranging from a special ed IA to a behavior interventionalist. How difficult and how time consuming is the process of hiring into these roles? Is this something that you kind of need to get ahead of so that you can hire for that role when you want it, like you said, later in the year? Is that something that, do we start that process now? What does that look like?
So thankfully, the speech therapist, we sort of already had somebody in mind for, and we're probably the only state that has additional speech therapy for non-special ed students. We were looking to have her fill in for a maternity leave, so I already had reached out to her, and we had used her before, and she was kind of considering coming to fill in for maternity leave, and so when we knew we were going to potentially have her cover, she said, sure, I might be interested in this position. So some of them are positions and people that we get through that type of thing. The behavior interventionist, I do not have somebody in mind for, so that position may be a little bit more challenging to get.
And I know I just went to Friday, all the Maryland superintendents were together. Baltimore County presented about 7 or 8 out-of-the-box ideas on how to strengthen their special ed practices. Now, some of them were contingent on their collective bargaining process. But that's something that I plan on bringing to the table, at least sharing what another county is doing to think. Because, across the state, we all know that that is an area that it's hard to find staff.
Oh, I do want to just pass this out because this is. So when you get this, the front is the chart that we use to collect data related to any staffing requests that have been made. And then the flip side is the case management report. So it's what we use to gather the information from every case manager on case management, their own case management, so the hours, all the students and those students' hours that they serve.
Okay. Is it possible to have the chart email? Because I don't have a copy of that.
I'm sending it to you right now.
Okay. Emily's emailing it.
Thank you. Ms. Brundige said she emailed it to you, but if not.
This chart, the case management chart?
Yeah. Send it again.
Of 3 pages that I sent earlier.
Is this the graphic organizer one? That's not it, right?
Yeah, it's the case management at the top, and it looks like it has TCPS case management report.
Okay.
I just took a picture and sent it to you. It's sending.
Thank you.
Do you have enough IAs right now?
I know that St. Michael's Elementary School is interviewing next week, but I don't know if that's for special education. I think it's for gen ed. And I know that we are hiring for Easton High School is still looking. I'm not 100% sure about Easton Elementary.
So one thing in looking at this, if you notice on one side is the case management report, the case manager, on the other side it's staffing requests. So we've been talking, overall about staffing, no matter what it is, but specific to special education, this is something, and I met with Ms. Mentges, and this was something she shared with me, which I was glad to see, because what it does, it lets us see the path of who's making the request, when did they make it, how did they make it, what was the request, and then what was the response that was given, and then an update. So we can keep track of, because oftentimes what we were finding was that someone was making a request to someone, it was going through, it skipped over, went underneath, and there just wasn't a system to be able to follow the path and to keep up with, so where are we in the process, what's the update? So this right here is a chart that we'll be able to keep per school to be able to track the path of when was it first requested, and then where are we right now? So then we can have these discussions as to the need and all of that. So this is a way for us to keep it kind of all in a system together.
Can I ask,
Darlene, what is the chain of command for these requests?
who are they submitted to, and like what is the path that they follow?
So I'll let Ms. Mentges jump into that. I believe it's a team first, that everything starts with a team, because I don't think anything, and I keep going back to that, is in isolation. And we've talked about this, quite frankly. I know when I was a principal, the needs sometimes seem like they outweigh the actual number for the staff. And so sometimes it is easier to put the request in and then having to go back to collect the data to bring to the team, or to be able to talk about the intervention that was done for the team, so that we could all talk and see about what was done. And so I think this will alleviate that, but I'll let Ms. Mentges jump in.
Yeah, so I get requests a lot of different ways. I get requests mostly from principals. If I get more of a request from a teacher, typically then I will call the principal and make sure the principal is aware that the need is there, and make sure the principal's been looped in. And then we'll have the conversation about, that request. And so then the request gets put on the form, and then there's usually follow-up conversation. Sometimes the request originates in an IEP meeting from a parent, or it originates from the staff. So regardless of whether it originates from a parent or staff, it'll get put on the form so that we can follow up with what the response, whatever the response needs to be. Sometimes the response might be more of an immediate response. So if it's really more of a student moving in and it's a safety need, or it's an IEP mandated need, it might be a more immediate need. I mean, if a student needs a nurse, we might need to respond and give a nurse to a student. But I think that, putting it on this sheet and figuring out, what the response needs to be, so that then I can go to Dr. Papakayi and say, this is what it is, and this has been the response. You know, we've had meetings, we've tried these things, but it hasn't worked yet, and I think we're at the point where we really need to, you know, provide a position. At least when the form gets to her desk, she knows that it really does, it is warranted. Or this child needs a nurse, and per the IEP and per their medical needs, this is what it is.
This Thursday is our first leadership meeting, so that's all the principals, teaching and learning department, and all the other departments will come together to talk about, you know, what's happening so far. So a little different than this year than the past years in that all the other departments will be there all together with principals, so we can make sure that everyone's hearing the same thing and getting the information. So that'll be the space where these type of questions, concerns can come up so everybody can hear the same messaging that's going out as it pertains to the different departments. So. And tomorrow, if you look at the sheet, which I'm super excited about a few things. One, the Paula Kluth professional development that took place in August. I did attend. There was a survey given out to everybody in attendance to get their feedback, and any other feedback that they had was received from that. And then secondly, tomorrow actually starts the Coalition of Inclusive Education, which is the 3-year process that we're going to be going through, where the team will be able to talk about the things that they would like to focus on, and then have that be addressed with a team of people. And I believe it was not listed here, but the assistant superintendent of, is that his title, special education?
Assistant State Superintendent for Early Intervention and Special Education.
Yes. Has he come yet?
He has not come yet.
But he's coming. He's scheduled to come as well to, from a state level, walk around and talk with us about what's happening. And in addition, Wednesday, we already have our dates for our first round of walkthroughs, so that we'll continue to invite, with all of these, not just special education, but invite our council people, you know, board members, of course, you all, to walk around our one of few walkthroughs that we'll be doing every quarter. I don't know if you finished. Okay. Any questions?
Say, yeah, I'm happy to hear about the coalition. I'm happy to hear about the discussion, the like large group discussion. I'm trying to think about how to say this carefully and sort of deliberately, and in hopes of full transparency. I think that we do have a bit of a disconnect between day-to-day life in our school buildings and what is happening maybe at the board level, or maybe I'm not sure where the breakdown is, but I would love to feel like I'm hearing like our special education, everybody who touches special education is on the same page as far as how and what and who is at the table and how we're doing this. And I'm not sure we're quite there yet, but it sounds like the pieces are putting the pieces together to really sort of align all of those. So I'm interested in hearing about the progress from this perspective. Very curious to hear how this goes, and would like to get everybody on that same page and to feel like everybody's needs are being met in the way that they need them to be successful in their positions. And so as such, to come back to what Mrs. Dodson had said earlier, I would like to see special ed be a specific and clearly delineated priority of ours, just so that we have a touch point to come back and continually talk about this and get regular updates like we are getting of our other priorities. I'd like to have this conversation more often than not. I don't know how the rest of you feel about this. We've talked sort of back and forth about whether it makes sense to make it its own priority, but I am really feeling strongly like I just want to hear about this more and more often, especially because of all of the new things that you said that we're going to be doing.
Yeah, so that's no problem. So I just want to make sure we're clarifying, and I want to focus on these 3 areas: narrowing the gap of achievement, going back to the top 3, providing special ed instruction inside general ed, and then IEP teams following policies and procedures. Also, though, under all of these, getting updates on the professional development that's taking place and all the things under here as well. I think getting updates as to how these are going.
Yeah.
So just wanting to clarify and stamp, I think this document is a clear depiction of what the plan is moving forward, and we can give updates on these things that are taking place.
Yes, and it helps us just be more clear and direct with our budget allocations when we get those requests, and so we can hopefully make them, you guys can make your requests, and it will make a lot more sense to us based on what we know, where you've been, and what you're trying to achieve.
Yep. One thing I want to add also at that meeting Friday that I went to, Frederick County gave the superintendent gave all the rest of the superintendents a very detailed presentation of what they're going through right now. They have the Department of Justice visiting them multiple times during a month, and you may have heard it in your special ed meetings because of something that they violated. I think it was restraints too much or something. But because of that, as a result, they have a plethora of things they have to do by the Department of Justice that's come in to make sure that doesn't happen again. They're getting audited. The teachers are constantly getting interviewed. Just a litany of things that is just, and the superintendent was basically telling the rest of us, just making sure you all have your ducks in a row. So I want to highlight, we didn't talk about this here, but the compliance and the legal aspect of special education. And just want to point out that we are not in court for high litigation, because I know, Ms. Mentges, you spend a lot of time with attorneys and making sure we stay out of special ed jail. So kudos to you on that. And for funding the supervisor position and the more hands on deck in the school so that we can be of service to the teachers that need it. So I just wanted to point that out.
Can I ask a clarifying question? So obviously the first priority and focus area is on the achievement piece. And the two of the areas, I believe it's two, are on achievement, correct?
Of our three?
Well, I know the strategic plan is already.
Yeah, academic is our main priority number one.
Right.
And then environment and then the staffing.
So can special ed be put under that? Can there be like an objective or a, because it seems odd to me to have it be, because obviously we want all kids to succeed. One subgroup would want to be successful in special education along with all the other subgroups. So would it make sense to put like I don't know, an objective or a under that goal?
Well, I don't want to put special ed just under academics because I think it's more than academics. Because I think the environment, the inclusive practices, the environment in which students are learning is important, and staffing that we're hiring in priority 3 is also important. So I wouldn't want to narrow it just under priority 1 to say we just want to close the gaps, because we need to look at how they're being taught and who's teaching them and making sure we're getting the professional learning. That's the only thing. But I think if we take this right here and say we're going to give updates and see how this area of focus are doing in addition to our other 3 priorities, is easy enough for us to track and have discussion points around.
I would agree, and we have actually had that conversation a lot. We've talked about our priorities a few different times, and we have gone around as a group as to whether it falls under the special ed actually infused in every single one of the things that we're talking about. Yes, it is. And that was the approach that we took last year, and I think that what we're looking to do this year is to give it its own subheading, because it is so many different things, like Dr. P said, but also, to me, this looks transformational. This is different than what we've done before. This looks like some major steps in a different direction, and I want to follow that and have its own, like I want to be able to track that as its own thing, as its own large sort of entity. And I also, with our other priorities, they touch on so many parts of our system. We're not just asking one specific, like we're focused on math, yeah, but we want to see academic achievement, and that's everybody. Everybody has to lean in for that. And I think that special education, while there are special ed teachers and their special ed focuses, everybody touches special ed, and so this is, it doesn't fall just sort of nicely to me under one, subheading.
And I always say, special education is a service and not a placement. And so when we're talking about all that goes under this, I think us strengthening the core, looking at our gen ed classroom, and what services are being provided to all of the students. Some may need this, some may need that, some may need the other. And I think, but I'm excited about the professional development that's coming and the extra, like I said, hands that we have to be able to do the work. But as we do go into the next budget cycle, we'll be able to hear about the needs and taking a pulse on that so that we can see, do we need to beef up more, and what other things can we put on the table to strengthen the work's being done.
All right, you guys are
I agree completely.
Anybody else?
Do we have more special ed students this year than we did last, with the new people moving in?
Can't say that right now. Our count is getting ready to occur, so I'll be able to state that next time we talk and have this conversation. I feel like there's a whole lot more, but I think that it's just in my mind right now. There's been a whole lot of, like I said, moving in, but I'm sure probably just as equally as many moving out too. So, yeah.
Any other questions? So I think, I think I got cut off again. I think overall, I'm pleased with the movement. We're moving the needle. I think we're prioritizing and putting our funding in where it needs to be so that we can continue to move. We'll continue to monitor. We'll continue to look at what's happening real time in our school buildings, be able to solicit feedback from the people in the work doing it. And so stay tuned. We'll continue to keep, doing these and having share outs as the year goes on around this. So, did you take this?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
We're aware.
Okay. So physically.
We've got another. Ms. Brundige talking about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, thank you, Ms. Mentges and Ms. Smith. And the last topic for this evening is the diligent community introduction with Ms. Brundige. I don't know if you want to start the Zoom again.
Oh yeah. Do I have to click the Zoom again?
You have to relaunch the meeting.
Okay, there we go. Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Anybody with their microphone on?
Anybody but ours.
Okay, so I sent everyone the Word docs handout, but also sent everyone a request to set up a password for Diligent. And in looking at the website, it looks like everybody except 2 did that, so I just resent those again. Sent those to your TCPS email, so if you don't mind logging in, if you just received a request to update your password, you can go in and do that right now. Your username will be your TCPS email address, and then your password is whatever you would like it to be. If you try to log in or you can't log in, you can request a password update. And for this evening, if you can't get in, it's okay. We'll just go through and look at the portal, and then we'll deal with getting everybody in over the next couple days so that we'll be able to get in for our next meeting. But if you will log on to our TCPS website by going to tcps.k12.md.us, just go to the main website, And go to the drop down About. On the far left side, you'll see board meeting info, which is the third item under About.
Wait a minute, let's pause, let's make sure. Wait a minute, let's go back.
Sorry. Okay, so.
That's the first step, I guess. Where are we supposed to go? So you're in is everybody in diligent?
No, I can't get it.
So if you can't get into diligent, we're gonna deal with that later. Just let me know that
Okay,
later,
so,
you can email me whatever that you can't get into your diligent
So
account.
where do you want us to go?
To your TCPS website.
NDUS? That
Yes.
one?
Yes, just the TCPS website,
The main website?
the main website. So if anyone can't get into their diligent page, just shoot me an email telling me that you can't get in, and I'll help you get in.
So right now on the main website, it's the school buses that we see at the top?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
You see the school, I think, and then it has the welcome to Talbot County Public Schools.
It should look like
Okay.
this. So it should say, welcome Talbot County Public Schools. And so if you're not in your diligent site and you just want to go to the Talbot County Public Schools site, you'll see the About at the top in the white bar. And you're going to drop down About. And over on the far left, you'll see board meeting info. It's the third item. Okay, so over here on your About, drop down, far left, third item says board meeting info. You want to choose that. And what you're going to see at the top, it's going to say TCPS k12.diligent.community/portal. And it's going to look like this. Does anybody need help? Okay, so just go back to your Talbot County Public Schools website. You don't even need to be in there. Just go back.
I don't know how to log out. Oh, no, sign in.
Go back to your tabs. Just go back to your Talbot County Public Schools website.
Help yourself. This must be a download.
Because I haven't been
Yeah,
able
so
to
you can go that way or
in
just.
Okay.
because it's not on Safari. I can't find Safari and none of them will come up on Google.
CPS, Talbot County
It
Public
won't.
Schools.
It's good right now.
I have no idea. It used to always come up, do you want to open it in Safari? And I'd say yes, and everything opened. Now they don't.
You're running.
I thought my water.
Hey, that would be tracking for about as well as today has gone.
I don't know what it was that she sent us that stuff.
So that's our
But
homepage.
I went on her link and she sent me an email and it would ask me if I wanted to open it in.
Everybody else is there?
My stream will be ready on Wednesday.
So just go to, yeah.
It's live stream right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's definitely gonna be online Wednesday.
Go to board meeting info.
There you are. That's the diligent
Okay,
side.
everybody's there. So once you're there, you can see exactly what the public would see. When you go to your diligent account, once we get you into your diligent account, you'll also be able to see closed minutes. That's the difference between your account and the public account. So what you'll see on here is that I have uploaded all of the board meeting dates already. Regular meeting, work session meetings are already in there. There's not a lot of details. It's just the template that's in there, but all the dates are in there. There's a calendar
I don't know.
on the far right side. So there's a schedule of meetings
Oh, I don't know login.
and the calendar.
Oh, yeah.
There's today's meeting on the far right side, upcoming meetings. And if you see an icon on the far right side that looks like a camera, that tells you that we've already set up to have the live streaming. So there's a little camera, that means the live streaming is already set.
Where it says live stream? Right
So
there.
all we have to do is hit live stream and it'll start playing.
So that's for somebody that's from the public stance?
Yes, they can see that. You can see that it's live streaming right now. There's a red live stream right next to it.
I don't enjoy myself.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
What we also have that's wonderful, I think, is a request to speak form. So if someone wants to speak at a meeting, they can now request to speak in advance and also say what they wish to request to speak about. So for a while, we'll do both. We'll still have our old form out front, but we'll also have online a request to speak.
Okay.
And we'll know in advance. Yes. Okay. And then we'll start to phase out the form that we have outside the door for a meeting.
Where do you see the request to speak?
If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see a speech bubble. 2 speech bubbles.
Is it on the home screen? How do you?
It's on your home screen.
I don't see it online.
Oh, there it is. Is that it? Oh, no.
Oh, you know, it's in it.
Oh, that's interesting.
So then we need to make sure
It's not there.
So that's something we need to capture.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I will
So,
reach
okay.
out to them tomorrow and let them know that it's
Okay.
not there.
Okay.
Because it's on.
It would be like right here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. You can also see that they're subscribed. So anyone from the public who subscribes will automatically receive an email saying that there's a new document, a new agenda, or a new meeting minutes for work session.
Request to speak is not showing up for them.
Yeah, that's
No.
what she's gonna capture that so we can get back to the rest.
There'll
I
be
already walked in, maybe that's why.
new agendas, new work
Not
session
new,
meeting
so that-
minutes,
New
new
request to speak.
regular session.
It's on yours.
Let's see, if I sign out, does it show up?
So subscribers will automatically receive that information. You'll automatically receive it as well. So the difference is that members are members of the board, and then subscribers are members of the public who choose to subscribe.
Okay.
So your handout here will show you exactly what you'll see. You'll see that here, here's a request to speak. So I'm not sure, but I will reach out to them and find out more. So basically, what we will be able to do, what you will be able to do, is you'll be able to see everything from every meeting. You'll be able to see the agendas. You'll be able to see every supporting document that's on there.
And you could go back and see all
And
the
you can
stuff.
go back and see everything. There'll be a document library. Eventually, we'll upload all the policies to this site as well. So the policies will be there. Anything that's related to this board will be there. Will live on this site. And that way it's all concentrated in one area. And if anyone needed to search for something, they could go to the search area and easily pull it up and find what they were looking for. So it is actually very user-friendly once you get in there.
And it will take some time because I haven't even gone in here yet. So I have to play around with it. So we know it'll take some time for us to get in and navigate, move around. And so I guess for me, on Wednesday, instead of obviously Granicus, this is what we go into.
Yes.
And we'll look at everything in here.
And until we're well-versed in it, I will keep sharing with you. I'm not going to do the packets, but what I'll do is email to you the information like we did tonight. I'll email information to you. And that way you'll have it. But I would like everybody to try to at least get online for Wednesday. Because if you're able to get online now, I think Emily's online.
Yeah.
If you can look, and she'll see that I've already uploaded the minutes for tonight's meeting and the supporting documents are in there.
Okay.
Because I was able to sit here and do that as we were sitting here. So that way it's that much more efficient. I don't have to type the minutes and then go back and enter them in separately. It's already in here. I was able to put the documents in as I was sitting here. So if you look in here, this is what you guys will see as the members view. Everything's here. The documents are here. If I click on this,
That's what we saw up on the screen.
yes, here's Dr. Einhorn's presentation. It'll load in there. And that's what the public will see as well. They'll see her presentation. There's a link to it. It's automatically in there. So her presentation will load from that link. So the minutes are in there. If I were to print the minutes, I tried to print the minutes from last month, it was 91 pages because every single document and every single link printed. Each of the policies, everything was in there.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's everything's there. It's actually, it's really a great.
Previous meetings.
Yeah, everything's there. It's really a great tool. It's just a lot of front loading, getting the information in there.
When I logged in, it just took me to a different screen. It looks like this.
Let me go to this one.
That, yeah. So that's Wednesday's meeting. And then I made previous, I got today's meeting.
So this is the closed section, so
So
public
the
can't.
minutes should have been attached to this to see. The minutes we couldn't see, couldn't put on.
Okay.
Because you present closed information.
I think.
Anybody have any questions other than how to log in? Once we get everybody logged in, I think we'll be in good shape. And then we'll go over, I'm happy to help everybody, any way you need to, any help you need once you get in. It's actually very user friendly. It's just getting used to the difference. Yeah. Getting into it. Once you get in, it's great. Okay, thank you, everyone.
And then what we could do then, I guess, for the public side is make sure we're, Ms. Gardner, having any kind of communication.
And she has uploaded already.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
So
on the
that
public
public
side,
can
it's
know
there. When you go to that's what they did today. That's why we're able to access it from the Talbot County Public School side.
Great.
Yes, and the archived information is in a separate area. So we started this system as of our new school year,
Okay.
July, and then the archived information is in a whole separate area.
Now I'm in weather.com.
Lost it, back to work.
Oh,
Okay, thank you.
So if there's nothing else, I know a little bit past our time, but.
Ms. Brundige, I really like the way you type the minutes.
Oh, thank you.
They're different and it's very easy and very clear, so I like this new.
Thank you.
This is good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? I think maybe we can figure this out by just touching all the buttons. So.
Here, email, call, text, send a flag, whatever you need.
Okay. We didn't make a motion to open, so if nobody has any other questions, we will call it for this evening, and I'll see you all on Wednesday. Yes? Okay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. Great.